Shalom, beloveds of the King. Here we come today, and we are going to continue looking at our Torah portions. I just want to apologize because I have been extremely busy with our community project, and this has taken up a lot of my time, but I needed to get everything up and running. And now that things are more in position, I am going to see that within this week. I'm going to try and catch up within this week, and next week I will try and catch up with our Torah portions so that we are on track where we need to be. And I know that this has just been a very, very difficult time for me, as I had people here to be able to help me, and my time was just very stretched, and so I'm trying as much as possible to do what I can do. But Abba is on his throne, and he will give me the grace, and I know that I will get these Torah portions up to the time of where we should be, and Abba's going to give me the grace within the next few days in order to be able to do what I need to do. So let us pray. Abba Yahuwah, I just want to praise and thank you for this day. I thank you, my Father, for that which you are speaking to us in this hour, for the foundations that you are giving us, especially the foundations as we work through these Torah portions and we have a look at our foundation. And as we're looking at this book of Shemot, the book of names, and as we are starting to understand a pattern being laid out for us, and a pattern that has been there all along, that we need to understand your purposes and your plans and that which you are doing, and yet man must just step aside and come onto your timeline. And when we understand the pattern, then we will not be those that are running around aimlessly trying to find out what is the gospel, when the gospel has already been laid out for us from the beginning. As Moshe and everything about Exodus is a type of a shadow of Moshe being a type of a shadow of a Messiah that was going to come to be able to deliver his people. And just like Yeshua has come to deliver us from a Babylonian, Egyptian system that has kept us bound and captive to the ways of this world, and how Yeshua has come to set the captives free, and how Moshe came to deliver these people, and exactly where we see the things where they are today, we can look at our own lives and understand where we are today, and that we understand that these plagues are going to repeat themselves and they're going to come, and this is what we must understand of what is coming in the days ahead. And so, Father, I just want to thank you that I can commit this time to you right now, asking you, Father, that you alone come and speak to my mind, speak through my lips, the very oracles that are going to come from your heart. Open the mind of our understanding as we hear the word. Open up our hearts, my Father, so that we may receive the word, that the word will fall on fertile soil to produce a harvest of that which you want to do in these last days. Father, we don't just want to be hearers of the word, but we want to be those that will be doers of the word, because we will shema and we will shamar. We will shema to hear and to obey, and we will shamar to see and to obey. So teach us your ways, that we may be able to have the deeper revelation of the understanding of your word, so that we may walk out your purposes and your plans for the glory and the honor of your name. And so, Abba Yahuwah, I just want to thank you that I commit this time to you right now as we look at this Torah portion of Bo. And so I praise and I thank you for this in Yeshua's name. Amen. So we are going to look at our Torah portion, Bo, which is Torah portion number 15, and we know Bo means to go, and so this is why we must understand that the Israelites need to go out, they need to come out. So Bo is to go or to come in or to, so it is this Torah portion of where we are going to see them having to be able to exit. They're going to come out. They're going to be able to exit out of out of this Egypt and what they need to do before they are going to be able to leave, and what is everything with looking at the last 2 plagues that is going to come, the last 3 plagues that is going to be able to come. And so we start and we look at Exodus Shemot chapter 10 from verse 1, and it says, and Yahuwah said to Moshe, go into Pharaoh. So he's to go to Pharaoh, for I have hardened his heart and the heart of his servant, so that I show these signs of mine before him. So Moshe has been going to Pharaoh constantly. This is now the 8th plague where he's going to go to Pharaoh, and he's going to be able to come and speak to the Pharaoh. Another plague. And so we look and we see that he says, I have hardened his heart and the hearts of his servants, so that I show these signs of mine before him. And so how interesting it is that the Father, everything that the Father is doing, we see that these plagues was to become a sign for the Pharaoh, but a sign for all generations. All that Abba does is to become a sign, for Abba wants everything to be able to bring glory and honor to his name, to be able to make himself known. And so these plagues are coming so that the Father can reveal himself to the Egyptians, to the Pharaoh, to make him understand that who is the one who's created heaven and earth, who is the one that has created creation in 7 days. He is the Almighty Yah, and not the Pharaoh that sees himself as Ra. And that is why we are going to see how these last 3 plagues, the Father is really going to be able to reveal himself, to show himself that he is the one who has created all. And so if we read verse 3 and 4, and it says, so verse 2, and that you relate in the hearing of the Son and your Son's Son, what I have done in Mitzrayim, my signs which I have done among them, and you shall know that I am Yahuwah. And so you see all these plagues and all this has been signs from generation to generation that's still spoken today. Still when we sit around a table, when we eat the Passover meal, we are being reminded of how we were set free from Egypt, and by the mighty hand of Yahuwah. And Moshe and Aaron came in to Pharaoh and said to him, thus says Yahuwah, Allah of the Hebrews, till when shall you refuse to humble yourself before me? Let my people go so that they may serve me. And so here again we see exactly like it is. How long do we harden our hearts that we do not want to humble and serve the Father? And this is exactly what is going on with the Pharaoh. He's hardening his heart and he's not wanting to be able to serve Yahuwah. So how long? And this is why Abba Yahuwah will have his way as part of bringing these plagues to be able to show himself in the midst of the situation. And so many times when we want to harden our hearts against the Father, he will allow situations to happen in our lives so that we may see that he's the only one that is in control of all things, and he will bring us and strip us to a place of where there is no one or nowhere else to turn but to him alone, because we will trust in the flesh and in the arm of the flesh. And many times the Father is going to have to strip us down until we come to the place of realizing that he is the only one that we are to turn to. And so now it comes, verse 4, and it says, or else if you refuse to let my people go, see, tomorrow I'm bringing locusts within your borders. So now we see the plague of the locusts, and this locusts is the 8th plague, and this is representing the god of Seth. It's the god of storms and disorders and chaos, war. Seth was known to be the brother of Isis and Osiris and Horus. So this is the god of the locusts was going to come up against the god Seth, which is this God, which is the God of storms and disorder and chaos. And so this plague of these locusts we see in verse 9, the Father is saying, Abba Yahuwah is saying, and Moshe said, we are going with our young and our old, with our sons and our daughters, with our flocks and our herds. We are going, for we have a festival to Yahuwah. And so, even in verse 7, the Pharaoh's servant saying, the Pharaoh's servant said to him, till when would this one be a snare to us? Let the man go so that they serve Yahuwah, their Eluah. Do you not yet know that Mitzrayim is destroyed? So you see, to how far do we harden our hearts that we cannot see the hand of the Father going on in our lives when He humbles us down to nothing to make us realize that He's the one who's in control and we are to submit and surrender to Him. But we continue to harden our hearts, and therefore, because of that, Father has to continue to be able to bring a strong hand against that which is standing against His purposes and His plans. And they are to be able to allow the people to go so that they may be able to come and go and celebrate a festival to the Father. So we will have a look at this as it comes up in chapter 12. And this is again our foundations of, as we are building this foundation, as we're working through the book of Shemot. And so Yahuwah said to Moshe, stretch out your hand over the land of Mitzrayim, for the locusts to come upon the land of Mitzrayim and eat every plant of the land, all that the hail has left. And so the Father brings this plague of the locusts, and so we must understand that this 8th plague is still tied into the 7th day of creation, because it is Yahuwah who has created all things, and He will show Himself strong. He is the one who will show Himself strong, not the God of Seth, that is the God of storms and disorders and chaos and war. And so these locusts are going to wreak havoc and eat everything, like a plague that's going to come, that's just going to bring destruction and going to be able to bring chaos and disorder. That's what these locusts are going to do. And the Father is going to show him that He is the creator of the heavens and the earth. And then if we have a look and we see, because if we go and we have a look at Revelation chapter 9, we will have this plague being repeated in Revelation chapter 9, because the 2 plagues that is going to be spoken of over here, the 8th plague and the 9th plague, is really going to be looked at in Revelation chapter 9. So in Revelation chapter 9, we have a look at where there's going to be these locusts that are going to come. And these locusts are going to have these stings. And in Revelation chapter 9 it says, from verse 6, and in those days men shall seek death and shall not find it, and they shall long to die, but death shall flee from them. And the locusts looked like horses. So let's just read from verse 1, because both the plagues of the darkness and the plague that's going to be the plague of the locusts is tied into Revelation chapter 9. So from Revelation chapter 9 verses 1, and it says, and the 5th messenger sounded, and I saw a star from the heaven which had fallen to the earth, and the key to the pit of the deep was given to him. And he opened the pit of the deep, and smoke went up out of the pit like the smoke of a great furnace, and the sun was darkened, also the air, because of the smoke of the pit. And out of the smoke locusts came upon the earth, and authority was given to them, as the scorpions of the earth possessed authority. So these locusts are going to be like not the locusts of that plague that were literal locusts. They are going to be locusts that are going to be like men. And it was said to them that they shall not harm the grass of the earth, or any green matter, or any tree, but only those men who do not have the seal of Eloah upon their foreheads. So, understand, the seal is going to be able to be, we are going to understand that this is going to be a seal that is going to be spoken to us at the end of this chapter. At the end of this Torah portion, we are going to close off with understanding the seal, and they were to be able to go and keep a feast for the Father, so that the plagues would not come upon them. So we have to understand, if we are not part of those keeping the Father's way and being sealed off with His seal, we are not going to be spared of what is coming upon the earth at this point in time. And so, but only those men who do not have the seal of Eloah upon their foreheads, and it was given for them that they should not kill them, but to torture them for 5 months, and their torture was like the torture of a scorpion when it stings a man. So it's going to be locusts and scorpions together. So there's a sting that's going to sting the people. What kind of sting has already come to sting people? And in those days men shall seek death and shall not find it, and they shall long to die, but death shall flee from them. And the locusts look like horses, prepared for battle, and on their heads were crowns like gold, and their faces were like the faces of men, and they had hair like women's hair, and their teeth were like lions' teeth, and they had breastplates like breastplates of iron, and the sound of their wings was like the sound of chariots of many horses running into battle. And they have tails like scorpions and stings, and in their tails is their authority to harm men 5 months. And they have over them a sovereign, the messenger of the pit of the deep, whose name in Hebrew is Abaddon, but in Greek he has a name, Apollyon. And so this is what is going to be 5 months. There's going to be a darkness that's going to come upon the earth that says that there was darkness because of the smoke that came upon the earth, that the sun was darkened, also the air, because of the smoke of the pit. So there's going to be a darkness, and then there's going to be these scorpions come, locusts, that are like these men that are going to be able to come, and they are going to start to kill those upon the earth, and they will be given authority and power for 5 months. So in Exodus chapter 31 verses 13, let's just go look at Exodus chapter 31 verses 13. So we go to Shemot. Shemot 31 verses 13, and it says, "And you speak to the children of Israel, saying, My Sabbaths you are to guard by all means, for it is a sign between me and you throughout your generations, to know that I, Yahuwah, am setting you apart." So we are to keep the Sabbath, His Sabbath, and the high holy Sabbaths as set apart unto the Father. And you shall guard the Sabbaths. You shall guard the Sabbath, for it is set apart to you. Everyone who profanes it shall certainly be put to death, for anyone who does work on it, that being shall be cut off from amongst the people. 6 days you work, your work is done, and on the 7th it is a Sabbath of rest, a set apart to Yahuwah. Everyone doing work on the Sabbath day shall certainly be put to death. And the children of Israel shall guard the Sabbath, to perform the Sabbath throughout their generations as an everlasting covenant between me and the children of Israel. It is a sign forever, for in 6 days Yahuwah made the heavens and the earth, and on the 7th day he rested and was refreshed. So this is a sign for the Father. The Sabbath was the first sign that was given to the Father, and as we work through our Torah portions as we go on, and as we understand the foundations that the Father is giving, this is part of the foundations of what the Father has given us. We are to keep feasts, we are to keep Pesach, we are to keep unleavened bread, then we are to keep the Sabbath. So it was a pattern that He gave us. And so in Ezekiel chapter 20, let's just go look at Ezekiel chapter 20. So who are the people that will be sealed off? So what is the seal that we are sealed off with? We are sealed to be able to not receive the destruction. There is a seal. And so what is the seal? In Ezekiel chapter 20 from verses 7 it says, "And I said to them, each one of you throw away the abominations which are before his eyes, and do not defile yourselves with the idols of Mitzrayim. I am Yahuwah your Eloah." So you see, we are to get rid of all the idols that are of Mitzrayim, but they rebelled against me and would not obey me. All of them did not throw away the abominations which were before their eyes. That's why the seal is between the eyes. Nor did they forsake the idols of Mitzrayim. So I resolved to pour out my wrath on them, to complete my displeasure against them in the midst of the land of Mitzrayim. But I acted for my name's sake, that it should not be profaned before the eyes of the nations among whom they were. Before those eyes I had made myself known to them, to bring them out of the land of Mitzrayim. So I took them out of the land of Mitzrayim, and I brought them into the wilderness. And I gave them my laws, and showed them my right rulings, which if a man does, he shall live by them. So you see, he was going to take them out of Mitzrayim to show them his ways. And I also gave them my Sabbaths to be a sign between them and me, to know that I am Yahuwah who set them apart. But the house of Israel rebelled against me in the wilderness, and they did not walk in my laws, and they rejected my right rulings, which if a man does, he shall live by them, and they greatly profaned my Sabbaths. Then I said I would pour out my wrath on them in the wilderness to consume them. But I acted for my name's sake, not to profane it before the nations, before whose eyes I brought them out. And I myself also lift up my hand in an oath to them in the wilderness, not to bring them into the land which I had given them, flowing with milk and honey and splendor of all lands, because they rejected my right rulings and did not walk in my laws, and they profaned my Sabbaths, for their hearts went after their idols. And my eye pardoned them from destroying them, and I did not make an end of them in the wilderness. And I said to their children in the wilderness, do not walk in the laws of your fathers, nor observe their rulings, nor defile yourselves with their idols. I am Yahuwah your Eloah. Walk in my laws, and guard my right rulings, and do them. And set apart my Sabbaths, and they shall be a sign between me and you, to know that I am Yahuwah your Eloah. So this is the seal, this is the sign that we are to be able to keep. And so then the eighth command has also got to do with the eighth plague is also tied into the eighth command, that thou shalt not steal. We have stolen Abba's authority. We have stolen what belongs to him. He controls creation, but man wants to be a god over himself and over creation. Now, we were given authority to guard over creation, but we are destroying creation because we have become a god unto ourselves, and we want to be able to rule creation as we want. We want to have 10 new sets of rules, and we want to be able to become gods unto ourselves. And this is the same thing as what it was with Pharaoh, and that is why the destruction was going to come upon Pharaoh. And so, in Exodus chapter 10, from verses 21, let's just have a look at chapter 10 from verse 21. And it says, And Yahuwah said to Moshe, stretch out your hand towards the heavens, and let there be darkness over the land of Mitzrayim, even a darkness which is felt. And Moshe stretched out his hand towards the heavens, and there was thick darkness in the land of Mitzrayim for 3 days. So you see, just as before these locusts came out, there was a darkness. Yeah, the darkness is coming just before there's going to be great death. The darkness is going to come just before there's going to be great death, because there's going to be a darkness, the sun shall not give its light, and there is going to be a darkness that's going to come upon the earth, and then these scorpions are going to be able to be sent out. These scorpions and locusts will be sent out to be able to kill mankind, and so there will be a time of great darkness before great destruction. Abba removes the light before the darkness comes. So we see that in this 9th plague, it's about the darkness. And what is the Father doing? Abba is coming up against the Pharaoh. He's known as the god of Ra, the sun god. He was like a god to the people. He would be stripped from his light. He will be seen to have no power against the Yah, the Creator, the Sovereign One, the Creator of heaven and earth. There will be nothing like him. There will be no man, there will be no created God that will compare to the sovereignty of Abba Yahuwah, the Creator of heaven and earth. And so we see, we've already read in Revelation chapter 9, verse 1, that there's going to be a darkness that's going to come, so that there's going to be a star that's going to fall, or something that's going to fall, and then there will be darkness for a time, and the sun will not give its light, and then this is when the scorpions are going to be released. So if we look at the 9th command, when we look at the 9th command, we understand that the 9th command has, you shall not lie. So in the 9th command, you shall not lie. The truth of the light of the word comes into the darkness and lights up the way of darkness and exposes the lies into the light. So you see, you shall not lie. Everything done in darkness will be exposed into the light. And the lie is what keeps us in darkness. When we have lies in us, the Father needs to be able to come and open the word to us, to expose the lie by bringing in the light of the truth of the word. So you shall not lie is because you're using your words to be able to lie. And so when the truth of the word comes, the light is what opens up. His word is a light unto our feet, and it shows the way that we are to go, because it exposes the lie and exposes the darkness. And he came to expose all lies, the lies that keep us in darkness. So the Father is going to be able to come and expose all the lies. So that is why he doesn't want us to lie, because when we lie, we speak those words and we become bound by the lies. We become bound by the darkness, because where there is a lie, there is darkness. And the enemy uses that area to be able to condemn us in that area of where the lie is. And so when we look at Exodus chapter 11, and so we're going to read Exodus chapter 11 from verses 3, and it says, "And Yahuwah gave the people favor in the eyes of the Mitzrites, and the man Moshe was very great in the land of Mitzrayim, in the eyes of Pharaoh's servants, and in the eyes of the people. And Moshe said, Thus said Yahuwah, about midnight I am going out into the midst of Mitzrayim, and all the firstborn in the land of Mitzrayim shall die, from the firstborn of the Pharaoh who sits on his throne, even to the firstborn of the female servant who is behind the handmill, and all the firstborn of cattle. And there shall be a great cry throughout the land of Mitzrayim, and such as has never been or ever shall be again." Now listen, verse 7. "But against any of the children of Israel no dog shall move its tongue, against man or against beast, so that you know that Yahuwah makes distinction between Mitzrayim and Israel. The same as there was no darkness in the camp of the..." Imagine, there will be thick darkness amongst the Egyptians, but no darkness in the camp of Goshen amongst his people, amongst the Israelites. And so all along the Father is making a distinction between the Yah of Israel, so that his people can see who he is and understand they too have heard all about these gods. They've heard about Ra, they've heard about Pharaoh being the great God, and they've heard about his power and how powerful he is, and they fear him because he's the one who is lording himself over them, ruling them with an iron fist. And now they are seeing that the Almighty Yah is far greater, El Shaddai, Yahuwah, Tzavaot, the one who's going to fight for them. He's the one who's showing himself strong in the midst of all of this that is going on. And so we see that then there's going to be this plague, the last plague, which is going to be the plague of death, which they are going to have to put the blood on the lintels of the doors, and if they do not put the blood on the lintels of the doors, they will not be protected. So when we get to Exodus chapter 12, by the time we get to Exodus chapter 12, Yahuwah spoke to Moshe and to Aaron in the land of Mitzrayim, saying, this new moon is the beginning of new moons for you. It is the first new moon of the year for you. So here we start with our pattern again. So as we've been working through our pattern, the Father has been laying a pattern. He's been laying a foundation. The foundation has been that first He came about and He brought His name. They did not know His name. He was going to make His name known. He was going to make Himself revealed. He brought about 10 plagues in order to destroy every one of the gods of the people that they were serving, to be able to know that there's no other Yah besides Yahuwah. And He was going to reveal Himself as His name, being Yahuwah, the only mighty one, that there is no other Al except for Him. There is no other mighty one except for Him. He's Al Shaddai, the all-sufficient one, the almighty one, that is going to deliver His people, and that they would clearly know that they are to serve Him, and they are to be able to do things His way. So first He comes, reveals His name, because He's going to make a name for Himself. He's going to reveal Himself. He's going to reveal His name. And this is what we understood last Torah portion, when He turned around and He said, for this reason I have raised you up, in order to show you my power, and in order to declare my name in all the earth. So in Exodus 9 verses 16, He's telling them clearly it's to be able to make a name for Himself throughout all the earth, and He's going to come up against every single plague every single God that there is, and He's going to raise Himself up in these last days. He's going to do the same. He's going to bring all His plagues again, and He's going to reveal Himself that there is no other name except the name of Yahuwah, that is the one who's going to show Himself strong on behalf of His set-apart ones upon the earth. And so here we start with a new foundation, and the foundation is going to be a calendar. So He first reveals His name, and then He's going to be able to put them on a calendar. So we must understand we need to destroy everything that is of Egypt, so that we can return back to the Father's way and the Father's calendar, because He's got a calendar. He says this new moon is the beginning of new moons for you. It is the first new moon of the year for you. So if you do not think that His calendar is important, if you do not think that His timeline is important, you have a problem, because this is His foundation, and His foundation is to put us on the right calendar for us to understand that as He's going to take them out of Egypt, He's going to now set His calendar in place. He's destroyed all the gods of Egypt, and now He's saying, right, now it will be business done my way, not your way. Come out of the calendar of these Egyptians. Come out of the ways of this Egyptian Babylonian system that you find yourself in, and start to follow my way. And this is where we are today. Today, everything is in sun god worship. And so day is beginning at sunrise and not at sunset. And so everything has been perverted. Everything has been turned around. We don't worship when we should worship. We're supposed to worship Him on a Shabbat, closing at sunset Friday till sunset Saturday on a Shabbat, and instead we are serving Him on a Sunday, which is sun god worship. And this is where everything has been turned upside down, and the Father is now saying, you are going to come and do things my way. This is my calendar. So the first thing He's going to do now, apart from the fact that He's revealed His name to them, the whole time He's been telling them, let my people go, because I want them to be able to serve me and keep a feast to me. Now they are going to come out, and the first thing that they're going to do is keep Him a feast, which is what He's been saying all along. You are to keep me a feast. And so he says, speak to all the children of Israel, saying, on the 10th day of this new moon, each one of them is to take for himself a lamb according to the house of his father, a lamb for his household. So here we see on the first new moon. So you know what? The year does not begin in the 7th month like the Jews keep it. In the month of Tishri, they want to keep the first of the 7th month as being the new year. That is not the new year. The new year is when it says, according to Exodus chapter 12, verse 2, it tells us it's the month of Aviv. This is the new year, which they call Nisan, but it's actually the month of Aviv. This is the new year. This is when the new year begins. Speak to all the congregations on the 10th day. So on the 10th day of this month, there is going to be a lamb that needs to be chosen, and it's going to be inspected for 4 days. And that's why on the 10th day, Joshua came riding on a donkey through the street, through Jerusalem, and they hailed him as king. And then he was inspected by Pontius Pilate, who inspected him. And when they saw that the inspection was, there was no sin found in him, they then said there's no sin found in him. And that is then when the Hebrews started to cry out, crucify him. And so they are to take, verse 5, let the lamb be a perfect one, a year-old male, take it from the sheep or from the goat. So we understand that this is not a brand new little lamb, that this is a 1-year-old ram already. He's on the border of becoming a ram. It is a big ram. It's not a little baby, little lamb. You know, we want to always think, you know, and we show all these little pictures of this little lamb, this little baby lamb. It's not a little baby lamb. It is a year-old ram that is being offered here. And so, yeah, we are going to see that this lamb is to be inspected for 4 days, and on the 14th day, the lamb is then to be able to be, the lamb is then going to be able to be, so let's read from verse 8, and they shall eat the flesh, so, and you shall keep it until the 14th day of the same new moon, then all the assembly of the congregation of Israel shall slay it between the evenings. So on the 14th day, which is still the 14th day, before that evening, because the evening when sun sets, we are going to go into the 15th day, because the day begins at sunset. So on the 14th day, between the evenings, it's going to be killed. So these people that wanting to be able to keep Passover on the 13th day, I don't know how they do this. It's going to have to be, the lamb is being slain on the 14th day. 3 o'clock the afternoon on the 14th day, he died. And then that evening, when you sit down to be able to eat the lamb, you are now, listen to what he says. So he says, and they shall take some of the blood, so between the evenings, and they shall take some of the blood and put it on the doorposts, on the lintel of the houses where they eat it, and they shall eat the flesh on that night, roasted in fire with unleavened bread and with bitter herbs. They shall eat it. So this is now on that 14th day. That evening is already now, the 15th day begun. You are to eat unleavened bread. So that night you sit down and you eat the lamb with the unleavened bread, because you've now entered into the 15th day, and that becomes the high holy Sabbath of the first day of unleavened bread. Verse 11 says, so they were supposed to put the blood of the lamb on the lintels of the door. Why? Because when the angel of death is going to pass by, every house that had the blood of the lintels on the lintels of the doors would not be killed. But whoever did not have the blood, the firstborn in that house would be killed. And this is how you eat it, your loins girded with sandals on your feet and your staff in your hand, and you shall eat it in haste. It is the Pesach of Yahuwah. And then verse 13 says, and the blood shall be a sign for you on the houses where you are. And when I see the blood, I shall pass over you, and let the plague not come on you to destroy you when I strike the land of Mitzrayim. So understand the blood of the Passover. If we don't even keep the feast of the Passover, the whole time it was told, come and celebrate a feast. Let us come and celebrate a feast, or else the plague is going to come upon us. Now this is our pattern. They're just going to come out of Egypt, and the first thing that they're going to have to keep is a feast unto the Father. Now do we even keep the feast of Passover? We are keeping an Easter, and we don't even understand what Passover is about, because we don't even give any thought to what happened at Passover at the time that we keep Easter. And the day shall become to you a remembrance, and you shall celebrate it as a festival to your earth throughout your generations. Celebrate it as a festival, an everlasting law. So I ask you, if this is an everlasting law, you do not change the law, I do not change the law, the church does not change the law. This is a law forever throughout the generations, so that we may be protected with the blood on the lintels of the doors. So Yeshua becomes our Passover lamb, and when we sit down and we celebrate the Passover, we are reminded of what happened in Egypt, but we are reminded of what Yeshua has done for us. Do people even understand that when they sit down and they have an Easter celebration, do they actually understand what they're celebrating, and that this is to be a law forever throughout your generations, and this is a feast unto the Father? And this was the first feast that they were asked to keep for the Father when they come out of the land. It's the very first thing that they're doing before they're even going to exit the land. They are doing a Passover meal. Then we have a look and we see in Exodus chapter 18, so Exodus chapter 17, and you shall guard the festival of Matzos, for on the same day I brought your divisions out of the land of Mitzrayim. You shall guard this day throughout your generations as an everlasting law. In the first month, on the 14th day of the new moon in the evening, you shall eat unleavened bread until the 21st day of the new moon on the evening. So you see, on the first month, on the 14th day of the new moon, in the evening, you shall eat unleavened bread. So why are these people starting to eat unleavened bread a day later? Only on the 15th day, then they eat the unleavened bread. On the 14th day in the evening, because that is when the 15th day begins, and that is when we keep 7 days of unleavened bread. I've had to go back to this how many times, because there's so much confusion with this calendar, and each man is doing what they think is right in their own eyes. They celebrate the Passover on the 14th, and then on the 15th they celebrate unleavened bread. Yes, unleavened bread starts the evening of the 15th, not the night of the 15th. So it's a confusion. For 7 days, so understand, that afternoon the lamb is slaughtered. That's the 14th day. That evening starts the 15th day, and that evening starts the festival of unleavened bread, because you're eating unleavened bread with your meal, with your Passover lamb. And that starts the festival of unleavened bread, which you are then to keep for 7 days. For 7 days no leaven is to be found in your houses, for if anyone eats what is leavened, that being shall be cut off from the congregation of Israel, whether sojourner or native of the land. Do not eat that which is leavened in all your dwelling. You are to eat unleavened bread. And Moshe called for all the elders of Israel and said to them, go out and take lambs for yourselves according to your clan, and slay the Pesach. And then they were to take hyssop, and they were to put it on the lintels of the doors, the blood that is in the basin, and strike the lintel, and 2 doorposts with blood that is in the basin, and you, none of you shall go out of the door of this house until morning. Verse 24 says, and you shall guard this word as a law for you and for your sons forever. So who told us now not to keep these feasts? Because Christians now do not keep the feast, because Christians now do not have a foundation. They have got a feast of Ishtar, so they celebrate Easter bunnies and Easter eggs, and they're celebrating a pagan festival, and they are not celebrating a festival according to the Father's word. And it shall be when you come out of the land which Yahuwah gives you, as he promised, that you shall guard the service. Verse 27 says, then you shall say, it is the Pesach slaughtering of Yahuwah who passed over the houses of the children of Israel in Mitzrayim when you smote the Mitzrites and delivered our households. And the people bowed their heads and did obeisance to the Father. And so praise Abba Yahuwah, here we see that the Father is very serious about us being able to keep this, because this is part of our pattern that is there. Now, if we go have a look then in Exodus chapter 12, verse 38, and a mixed multitude went up with them too, also flocks and herds with very much livestock. So it wasn't only the Israelites that came out, there was a mixed multitude that came out with them. So already there was going to be a people that was going to be joined to Israel. So already the Father is making an allowance for those that are going to be grafted into the house. He's already done it when they came out of Egypt. And so now when we have a look at verse 49, and it says, there is one Torah for the native born and for the stranger who sojourns among you. So understand, they had to be circumcised. Now it's not about just a physical circumcision, because if you really want to be able, I do not have the time to go into every single scripture. I have done this as I've been working through the Torah portions, not the Torah portions, but I've worked through the book of Exodus, chapter and verse. I've worked through the book of Exodus extensively, chapter and verse. And if you go through all these chapters, I go into it intense. And I go into it in detail, and you can go and listen to that teaching. You just need to go into Exodus. The chapters are there, and you can go into that chapter, and you can go and read that and understand what I have spoken about circumcision. Now everybody wants to get legalistic, and they want to turn around, and they want to say, unless you are circumcised, you may not sit at a table. But we can go and read in Romans very clearly that says, who is a circumcised one? One who is circumcised of the heart, not just one who is circumcised of flesh. So he says there is one Torah for the native born and for the stranger who sojourns among you. So at the end of the day, if we are being grafted into this house, then we need to understand that this house is a house that is going to be able to come and do things the Father's way. And so if the Christians are receiving Messiah Yahushua, they are being grafted in, according to Romans chapter 11, to a house. And that house is to do things in the Father's way. Then we have a look at Exodus chapter 13, verses 4. In Exodus chapter 13, verses 4, it says, today you are going out in the new moon of Aviv. So it was in the new moon of Aviv, that they are going to be going out. If you take verse 5, and it says, and it shall be when Yahuwah brings you into the land of the Canaanites and the Hittites and the Amorites and the Hivites and the Jebusites, which you swore to your fathers to give you, a land flowing with milk and honey, that you shall keep the service in this new moon. So we are to keep the Pesach at its appointed time, not when we think we to do it. It is in the month of Aviv. And the month of Aviv has everything to do with not just he's put sun, moon, and stars, but there's an agricultural calendar that goes with it to understand when the agricultural calendar, we have to bring him a sheaf offering of a barley harvest. So everything must tie in together. Everything must tie in together. But it's the sun and the moon and the stars that will establish the harvest of the land, of what needs to be able to be offered to the Father. But then people want to be able to now discard all of this, discard sun, moon, and stars. They want to do their own calendar. They want to do an Enoch calendar. They want to be able to keep things according to their own understanding. And nobody's wanting to come back to the Word and do things according to the Word. This calendar, beloveds, is very important to the Father. He didn't put it here just because it's a good idea. He put it here because we are to follow it. He says, 7 days you eat unleavened bread, and on the seventh day is a festival to Yahuwah, which becomes a high holy Sabbath. So the first day is a set-apart Sabbath. So when we keep Pesach, that evening it's the 14th day, but then we will be entering into the 15th day, and that evening the whole of the next day is a high holy Sabbath to the Father, and then we count the 7 days, and on the last day of the feast, on the 7th day, will be a high holy Sabbath to the Father again. Unleavened bread is to be eaten the 7 days, and whatever is leavened is not to be seen with you, and leaven is not to be seen within all your borders, and you shall inform your son in that day, saying, it is because of what Yahuwah did for me when I came from Mitzrayim, and it shall be a sign to you on your hand, and as a reminder between your eyes, that the Torah of Yahuwah is to be in your mouth. For with a strong hand, Yahuwah has brought you out of Mitzrayim. So we're either going to submit to him and his sign of his Sabbath and his feasts, or we are going to come up against his strong hand of his plagues. The choice is ours, the choice is yours. And you shall guard this law at its appointed time from year to year. Not your appointed time, at its appointed time from year to year. And so verse 14 he says, and it shall be when your son asks you in time to come, saying, what is this? Then you shall say to him, by strength of hand Yahuwah brought us out of Mitzrayim, out of the house of bondage. So the Father brought us out of Egypt, and now he's bringing us into a wilderness to strip us from the ways of Egypt and to teach us his ways. And the first thing that he's going to do is have us keep a feast to him, have us to keep a Passover feast, and then he's going to teach us to keep unleavened bread. That's why they had to bake cakes of unleavened bread and take it with them, so that when they were going to go, they were now going to keep this feast of 7 days of unleavened bread before the Father. But now we want to turn around and say, oh, this has been done away with. We don't need to worry about doing unleavened bread because Yeshua became my unleavened bread, my Passover lamb. No. He was the Passover lamb. He was the unleavened bread because he was without sin, and that is why we are to keep this as a feast forever throughout our generations. To do what? To be able to be reminded of what the Father has done for us. Verse 16. And it shall be as a sign on your hand and as frontlets between your eyes, for by strength of hand Yahuwah brought us out of Mitzrayim. And so if we go look at Deuteronomy, we looked at the sign was the Sabbath. Now we look at Deuteronomy chapter 6. Let's go to Deuteronomy chapter 6. Deuteronomy chapter 6, we read from verses 1 to 8, and it says, and this is the command, the laws and the right rulings which Yahuwah your Lord has commanded to teach you to do in the land which you are passing over to possess, so that you fear Yahuwah your Lord, to guard all his laws and his commands, which I command you, and your son and your grandson, all the days of your life, that your days be prolonged. So for our days to be prolonged, we are to obey his commands. And this is why, this is the foundations that he's given us. He's destroyed every one of those gods in 10 commands, in 10 plagues, which are going to be tied up to 10 commands. So that we are to understand, by keeping his commands, we will be destroying these 10 plagues. The plague that will come upon us. We are to keep his ways, keep his ordinances, to keep the plagues away from us. If we are not those that are going to keep his commands and keep his laws and keep his statutes, the plagues are going to come upon us because we will not be sealed off. So the fear of Yahuwah your Lord to God, so that you fear, listen to what we need to do. We need to fear Yahuwah our Lord, to guard all his laws and his commands, which I command you, you and your sons and your grandson, all the days of your life, that your days be prolonged. And you shall hear, O Israel, you shall shema, you shall hear and you shall obey, O Israel, and shall guard to do that it might be well with you, and that you increase greatly, as Yahuwah, Allah of your fathers, has spoken to you, in the land flowing with milk and honey. Hear, O Israel, he tells them again for the second time. Shema, Israel, hear and obey, O Israel. Yahuwah, our Lord, Yahuwah is one. And you shall love Yahuwah your Elohim with all your heart and with all your being and with all your might, all your resources. How do you guard him with all your might? You show him that you love him by when you take the resources that he's put in your hands and you serve him and you serve his people with your resources. Your resources are not yours. The resources that's been given into your hands is for you to be able to be used for him and for his kingdom. And that is how you show him that you love him. Not just by obeying his command. Listen. And you shall love Yahuwah your Elohim with all your heart. How do you show him that you love him? By you obeying his commands. And with all your being. With all your heart, your mind, your will, and your emotion. With all your being. And with all your might. All your resources. So is it just the fact that we are just to keep his commands? Now we pride ourselves to think we are the bride. What do you do with your resources? Do you serve him with your resources? What is it that is put into your hands that is for him and for his kingdom? And these words which I am commanding you today shall be in your heart, and you shall impress them upon your children, and shall speak of them when you sit in your house, and you shall walk by the way, and when you lie down, and when you rise up. So you see, these words shall be commanding you today, and shall be in your heart, and you shall impress them upon your children, and you shall speak of them when you sit in your house, and when you walk by the way, and when you lie down, and when you rise up. So tell me, how is this thing being done away with when this is what we're supposed to be teaching our children? If we were to be a nation that was keeping these commands of the Father and his ways and his precepts and his ordinances, we would not be a lawless people like we are today. We would not be a people that are wanting to be able to sleep tell the Creator of the universe that what he's made me a woman, but I want to be a man, and I will change what he made and say that he made me wrong because he actually made me. No, you've got to be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Your mind is lying to you. Your mind is telling you that you are a man when you are actually a woman, or you are a woman when you are actually a man. Your mind is lying to you. It's the devil that is lying to you. It's not the Father. Father didn't make a mistake when he created you. But now mankind wants to say that he makes mistakes because we go with our emotions and our feelings. And you shall bind them as a sign on your hand, and they shall be as frontlets between your eyes. There is the sign. We read it in Ezekiel chapter 20, from verses 7 to 20. We read it in Ezekiel chapter 20, verses 7 to 20. We read it in Exodus chapter 31, from verses 13 to the end of that chapter. We read it. And this is the sign, and now we're reading it in Deuteronomy. So this is what the Father is requiring of us. So let us have a look at our Haftorah. Our Haftorah is Jeremiah chapter 46. So let's go look at Jeremiah chapter 46. Jeremiah chapter 46, and it's from 13 to 28. We are going to read from verse 24. The daughter of Mitzrayim shall be put to shame. She shall be given into the hand of the people of the north. Yahuwah of hosts, the Elohim of Israel, has said, see, I'm bringing punishment on Ammon of No, and on Pharaoh, and on Mitzrayim, and on their mighty ones, and on their sovereigns, and on Pharaoh, and on those trusting in him. So you see, Father was always going to come up against the nations and their sovereigns and their mighty ones that they put their trust in, and he's constantly having to show his people who he is and why do they put their trust and their faith in their allies of their neighboring nations, like Israel's still doing today, wanting to put their trust and their faith in America, their neighbor, their ally. And yet at the end of the day, the only one that he wants them to put their trust and their faith is in him and him alone. And so we read, and he says, and I shall give them into the hand of those who seek their lives, into the hand of Nebuchadnezzar, sovereign of Babel, and into the hand of his servants, and afterward it shall be inhabited in the days of old, declares Yahuwah. So this is what the Father is going to do. He was then going to be able to bring destruction. You can read that in Isaiah 19 from verses 19 to 25, that he's going to bring judgment upon them. But as for you, do not fear. Now he speaks to the house of Israel. This is future. But as for you, do not fear, O my servant Yaakov, and do not be discouraged, O Israel. For look, I am saving you from afar, and your descendants from the land of their captivity. So the Father is going to save us from afar and from the land of our captivity. He is going to save us. And Yaakov shall return. So Yaakov shall return and shall have rest and be at ease with no one disturbing. That is not the land of Israel that we see today. The land of Israel is not lying in a place of where they are not disturbed. They are very much disturbed by their neighbors that are coming up against them, that are constantly wanting to be able to bombard them, and they're constantly shooting at them. Do not fear, O Yaakov, my servant, declares Yahuwah, for I am with you. May this be a word for all of us today, where the Father is saying, do not fear, O Yaakov, my servant, declares Yahuwah, for I am with you. Though I make a complete end of all the nations to which I have driven you, yet I do not make a complete end of you, but I shall reprove you in right ruling. So the Father corrects us in his right rulings, and by no means will he leave us unpunished. He will punish us for the gods that we want to serve. He will punish us for the fact that we want to bow down and put our trust and our flesh in the arm of our flesh, as opposed to putting our trust and faith in his mighty arm, his right arm that he delivers us from. And so I just want us to finish off with Acts chapter 13 as an encouragement. So let us read Acts chapter 13 as an encouragement for us. And in Acts chapter 13, and we're going to read from verses 15, and it says, and after the reading of the Torah and the prophets, and the rulers of the congregation said to them, saying, men, brothers, if you have any word of encouragement for the people, speak. So this was now, we read that they were reading the Torah, they were reading the books of the Torah, and they were reading from the prophets. And Shaul, standing up and motioning with his hand, said, men, Israelis, and those fearing Eloah, listen. The Eloah of this people Israel did choose our fathers and exalted the people in their sojourning in the land of Mitzrayim, and with a high arm he brought them out of it. Now for a time of about 40 years he sustained them in the wilderness, and having destroyed 7 nations in the land of Canaan, he gave their land to them as an inheritance. And after that he gave judges for about 450 years until Shaul the prophet. But then they asked for a sovereign, and Eloah gave them Saul, and the son of Oish, a man of the tribe of Benjamin, for 40 years. And having removed him, he raised up for them David, a sovereign, to whom also he gave witness and said, I have found David the son of Yishai, a man after my own heart, who shall do all my desires. From this one seed, according to the promise, Eloah raises up for Israel a Savior, Yahushua. So, praise the Father. He gave us a Savior, Yahushua, that came from the line of David, from David's line, from Yehudah. And so in verse 30 it says, and Eloah raised him from the dead, and he was seen for many days by those who came up with him from Galilee to Jerusalem, who are his witnesses to the people. And we bring you the good news, the promise made to the fathers. And Eloah has filled this for us. Their children have raised up Yahushua, as it has been written in the second Tehillah, you are my son, today I have brought you forth. And that he raised him out of the dead, no more to return to corruption. He has said, I shall give you trustworthy kindness of David. For this reason, he also says to another, you shall not give your kindness one to see corruption. So understand, Yahushua is the one that has come to be able to raise us up, to be our great deliverer. He was the one that was resurrected on the third day, our deliverer, the one like a Moshe that has gone before them to deliver them out of the land of Mitzrayim. So we have been given Yahushua, the one who will deliver us. What is it that you are facing today? Where are you today? Who do you need to be able to turn to in this day? Yahushua is the one who is our faithful deliverer. He is the one that is going to be able to deliver us as we surrender to Him, as we bow and submit to Him and Him alone. He is the one that destroys those that will come against us. He destroyed all the gods of Egypt. What is it in your life that you must submit and surrender to Him so that He destroys those demonic spirits that are oppressing you and wanting to come up against you? He will silence the voices of the enemy that come up against you in your life, just as He did with and He delivered the Israelites. And Yeshua has now resurrected, and by the power of His mighty strong hand, who He is seated at the right hand of the Father, He is the one who makes intercession on our behalf, and nothing is too difficult for Him. May Abba Yahuwah bless you. Abba Yahuwah, I just want to praise you, and I want to thank you for this Torah portion, bow. And I thank you, Father, that you are our great deliverer. Will you continue to deliver us from those areas in our lives where we are maybe still captive and bound, where maybe there are lies, the enemy's lies, where we need the darkness to be expelled and your light to come to set your captives free. I praise and I thank you for this in Yeshua's name. Amen.